Okay guys, tonight we're going to get an introduction to forensic science, and what this lesson is for is because it's going to merge us into a neat unit that we're going to tie forensics into the skeletal system. So what is forensic science? It's the application of science to those criminal and civil laws that are enforced by police agencies in a criminal justice system. Kind of like when we see the shows Bones, CSI, NCIS. So forensic science is an applied science and is often called criminalistics. Forensic science applies to many sciences like chemistry, biology, physics, and geology. And all these are tied into both civil and criminal law. And it places physical evidence into a professional discipline. The functions of forensic scientists: analysis of physical evidence. So the forensic scientist must be skilled in applying the principles and techniques of the physical and natural sciences in order to identify the many types of evidence that may be recovered during crime investigations. So if you're interested in this field of forensic science, you will have to take many different science courses to tie into evidence that you need for investigations. There is also expert witness. An expert witness possesses a particular skill or has knowledge in a trade or profession that will aid the court in determining the truth. So forensic science could be called as an expert witness in a case. Also functions of the forensic scientist: special trained in evidence collection techniques. The training and proper recognition, collection, and preservation of evidence is required so that the forensic pathologist, as the medical examiner or coroner, can determine the cause of death via an autopsy. So you see, this is a drawing of someone in correct anatomical position like we learned, and they have different markings on the body that they're identifying so that when they can actually determine who this victim is, the identifying marks will show. For example, if there's a tattoo or freckles or scarring. Also, it looks like they are showing some of the damage that was done on this victim. So death can be classified in 5 different categories: natural death, homicide, suicide, accident, or undetermined manner of death. And under the topic of forensic pathology, the cause of death can often be determined by performing an autopsy. To continue with the topic of forensic pathology, after a human expires or dies, there are several stages of death. Rigor mortis is immediately following death, and the muscles relax and then become very rigid, shortening of the muscles. Very similar to what we saw when we dissected the cat and removed the skin and saw the muscles really tight and tense. Livor mortis is when the human heart stops pumping due to the blood begins to settle in the parts of the body closest to the ground due to gravity, and the skin will appear dark blue or purple in these lower areas close to the ground. And then algor mortis is the process in which the body temperature continually cools after death until it reaches room temperature, enabling the medical examiner to establish the general time of death. Forensic anthropology primarily involves the identification and examination of skeletal remains in order to determine if the remains are human or other type of animal. If human, the ethnicity, sex, approximate age, and manner of death can often be determined by an anthropologist. So in our study that we're going to do, our unit that we're going to do this week, we are actually going to be able to determine if the victims are male or female, approximate age, and approximate height. Forensic entomology is the study of insects and their developmental stages. It can help to determine the time of death by knowing when these stages normally appear in the insect's life cycle. So if there are insects in the victim, they can actually help determine how long the insects have been there, and then they can determine the time of death or approximate time of death of a victim. So forensic psychiatry is similar to in CSI, when the psychiatrist comes in and tries to figure out the motive of these suspects and behaviorally what is taking place. It is the study of human behavior and legal proceedings in both civil and criminal cases. In civil and criminal cases, competency often needs to be determined. That means whether they are capable of standing trial or not. And in criminal trials, the evaluation of behavior disorders is often required in order to establish the psychological profile of a suspect. Forensic odontology, an odontologist can match bite marks to suspect's teeth or match a victim to his dental x-rays. It results in identification of an unknown individual based on records. Forensic engineering is used to analyze construction accidents and the causes and origins of fires or explosions. So forensics analysis can include organic and inorganic analytical techniques. Organic and inorganic terminology should look familiar. We learned that earlier in Chapter 3. And remember, organic means it contains carbon, so it means it was living or once was living. So when you do organic analysis of unknown substances, it includes analytical techniques such as chromatography, UV visible and infrared spectrophotometry, and mass spectrometry. And then inorganic analysis includes techniques such as the emission spectrum of elements, atomic absorption spectrophotometry, neutron activation analysis, and X-ray diffraction analysis. These are terms that are not as familiar, and if you did take chemistry or physics, you might be familiar with these techniques. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. So some of these terminology and concepts will be used in our investigation that we're going to do this week, and you're going to utilize these notes to help you with this investigation.